Okay, so today we're gonna talk about essentially the Venezuelan. I don't think it's even a war. I think it's just the U.S. is tired of all these drugs coming into this country. So essentially, what I want to talk about is essentially Venezuela, and essentially, there's been a lot of talk recently on social media saying that all the US wants from Venezuela right now is their oil. I mean, no shit. Of course, they're gonna want oil, right? That's how deals are made between countries, the exchange of resource for either protection or help, right? And I think this rhetoric that's being used that the U.S. just wants the oil regime change, that it's gonna be another Iran, it's gonna be another Afghanistan. I think those um that talk is just completely wrong, right? Because there's a core difference in this, right? You essentially Venezuela used to be like one of the richest countries in the South America, right? And right now you have a very big dumbass called Nicolas Maduro in running everything in Venezuela, even though he has arguably one of the most beautiful uh, countries in all South America. And you know, you have such a big dumbass that doesn't know how to do anything, right? And this whole regime thing, right? It wasn't obviously Nicolas Maduro that was the initial person that drew Venezuela into like this hyper socialist society where essentially no one owns anything in Venezuela, right? And my family used to own essentially my family used to own, well, distant family used to own a farm in Venezuela, right? And now there's squatters in that farm. You can't take them out, and it's essentially the property is owned by the state now, which is essentially Venezuela. And essentially, the only people that have money are what you would call Chavistas, which are the people that uh, essentially were supporters of what was then Chavez, the ex-president that has died. Whether you say that is very fortunate or not, I don't judge, right? I'm not a person that really wishes anyone's death upon anyone, no matter how bad they were in this world, right? Because I don't wish anyone to wish death upon me. So essentially, this whole rhetoric of they just want the oil in Venezuela, no war on Venezuela, even though the people of Venezuela very much want this, right? And I understand that the people in the United States are tired of war. um it's very been a very touchy subject, but this is just not just any war, and you could say that that's the same shit they told you for Afghanistan, right? But this is something that's happening in our backyard, right? I am a US citizen, right? My family is from Venezuela, right? So I do have some sort of conflict of interest in that in my argument. Now, do do I think that the US might have all ulterior motives? Of course they have ulterior motives. Donald Trump is a businessman. He does things in a business way. He handles the United States as a business, for good or for worse. He handles it like a business, and at the end of the day, it's going to benefit both the US and Venezuela for this to happen. Why? The United States will take advantage of the natural resources. Venezuela would take advantage in the sense that the people will not be suffering anymore, which you would think that the left would support this. But since it's something that Donald Trump wants to do, they're obviously not going to be for it, right? And that's why there's been protests recently in across the United States by people waving the Venezuelan flag that aren't even Venezuelan. And I don't know if this is a psyop. I don't know if, you know, people. It's impressive how these protesters just gather out of nowhere for a cause that really does not interest them. Well, you could say it interests them because there's a possibility of a war that the U.S. might be involved in, but I really don't think the U.S. is going to get involved. First of all, Venezuela doesn't have a strong military force, right? Especially with the dumbass of Maduro taking over, being the president and the commander in chief. There's then there's these people that really believe that Venezuela has everyone has equal opportunity. That not equal opportunity, but basically everyone has the same amount of money, right? Like I said before, Venezuela used to be one of the richest countries and one of the like it was a country where American people used to migrate to Venezuela. That's how good it was. And now it's this shithole where $1 is the equivalent of trillions. I think it's a trillion bolivares, which is the national currency of Venezuela, right? But in the time at the time, like I want to say in the 1950s, the bolivar was almost on par with the American dollar. Like $1 in Venezuela was equivalent to 3 bolivares. If you see the change in this, like, let me see if I could find this chart. But anyways, like, I know firsthand, because of family members that I still have in Venezuela, that essentially they're living. If you want to know what their living wage is, it's like they basically make almost just $15 a day. And right now the bolivar has no worth. People buy things in American dollars, right? So if they're making the equivalent of $15 a day worth of bolivares, and everything is sold in dollars, how could they survive on $15 a day, right? And so, like, there's this very weird notion he that is coming from the left, saying that the only reason Venezuela isn't surviving on socialism is because the US sanctions. But it's been like this since before even the US started putting sanctions on Venezuela, right? And you know I want this for everyone to understand that this conflict between Venezuela hopefully ends in a positive way, where you know I am US first. I am everything US first, right? And I never believed that there would ever be a regime change in Venezuela unless the United States would get some sort of benefit out of it that would benefit the people, which would be the oil. And Venezuela is very rich in natural resources aside from the oil. I mean, Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in I don't know if reserves specifically in barrels in the world, but like they are known for, like, they were first to none, like second to none when it came to this back in those eras when they were one of the richest countries in South America. And so, you know, th- this is how I see it, this benefiting both the US and Venezuela. You know, my argument for both the left and the right. For the right, first of all, Venezuelans are very prideful in their country, not the politics that exists right now, but their country, the beauty of their country. And it's not that they wanted to leave Venezuela. The Venezuelans that live here in the United States right now, it's not that they wanted to leave Venezuela. It's that they had to leave Venezuela or they would die, right? So in the moment that shit gets fixed in Venezuela and people aren't in fear of their life, you're going to see a mass exodus of Venezuelans from the United States. Because now they could go back to the country that they they love a lot, right? Now, you're gonna get that mass exodus, right? But then there's gonna be the Republicans or the conservatives, whatever you want to classify them, that will be of like, why did we have these people in here if they weren't going to be America first, right? That's going to be a very big argument, right? Well, my position is that the ones that already became US citizens in this country would be American first. They will stay in this country. They fought very hard to become US citizens. And the ones that just came here under TPS, temporary protective status, which is, it's in the name, it's temporary. First, Trump would end all temporary protective status because this conflict would be fixed, right? So there would be no necessity to keep these foreigners in the country. And I don't think Venezuelans would have any problem with that, because now they could go back to their country and, be happy in what, they hopefully wanted for all these years. Venezuela has been in conflict for more than 20 years. There's a lot of Venezuelans that believe that that don't want, like, it's a small minority. It's like 20% of Venezuelans don't want this conflict to happen because they don't want people to die, right? But if you want shit to get done, it has to be the hard way, because a lot of there's this little thing called la viveza criolla, which is something that really impacts all of Latin America, right? And what essentially that is that you find like little schemes that basically puts you above a lot of people, right? But when I refer to la viveza criolla in this case, it has to do with laying back and waiting to see for shit happen instead of putting action, right? And so, like, I've been fighting a lot with my private Instagram account. I've been fighting a lot with different individuals that are really against this, because they want the shittiness to continue without anything, not putting your time into fixing things. And for the first time, I've seen in my Venezuelan community in the United States, hope. There's a lot of hope that finally my family's ancestors, what they had in Venezuela, could finally be fixed and people could be happy. And I'm not saying that there isn't going to be innocent casualties, right? Which is, I guess, what the left is worried about. Boo-hoo. That's how history works. Nowhere in history has there ever been conflict without bloodshed, right? Unfortunately, there's going to be, deaths, right? That's just part of life. That is part of conflict. And that is part of, these people, the vast majority of Venezuelans, 90%, around 90%, voted for the opposition leader. They voted for Edmundo Gonzalez. I have my qualms with my problems with Edmundo. I think he's old, right? But I think he's a little bit of a coward. He's not like Maria Corina, which is still in Venezuela hiding. I think she should be the Venezuela's next president, right? There's a reason she won the Nobel Prize, and let me tell you, she deserved that Nobel Prize because she's been fighting for 20 years. There's videos of her confronting Hugo Chavez when he was in reign, and she has sacrificed a lot. There's a reason she didn't show up to the Nobel Peace Prize meeting, and it's because she's in Venezuela. She's not gonna leave. She is gonna be there until shit changes, and she will maintain her hiding. But no matter how bad things will get, she will not leave. Unlike Edmundo Gonzalez, I think that's his name, the one that was voted in. Um, but yeah, I think uh, we're gonna watch this video when they took over this tank, this this oil tanker. I don't think there's any audio. You know what I call this? I call this rip bozo. You know, like if Venezuela can't even protect one of their oil tankers that was heading from Venezuela to, I think it was to Iran, what makes you believe that their military might is enough to counteract the United States, right? And even if it goes against international laws, who enforces international laws? That's right, the United States, because we're the strongest country in the world, right? No one rivals us, you know. Now we can't bully Russia because they have nuclear weapons, right? But there's a reason that we are at the top of our game. No one fucks with us. We fuck with other people to get our way. That may be crass, but that's just how it works. And I'd much rather have the United States be the one that has the big balls to tell everyone what to do than another country that doesn't have the values of our country, right? And aside from that, Venezuelans are known for being very capitalistic, right? So, in essence, I personally truly believe that if Donald Trump doesn't do this, and especially with Maduro being the current president, right? Which is a dumbass that doesn't know what's going on because he has 3 brain cells. Then there will come another leader that actually knows what the hell they're doing, and then we're gonna get another China, another Russia, and we don't want that, especially right next door to us. I guess she did show up. I thought she wasn't gonna.